Bom, em face dos recentes acontecimentos sobre nazismo e esse tipo de fala e de conversa, eu queria aproveitar para falar sobre o experimento de Stanley Milgram, e foi nessa época. Experimento de Milgram, obediência às autoridades. Depois eu deixo o link do canal.
In 1962, Stanley Milgram shocked the world with his study on obedience. To test his theories, he invented an event that would become a window into human cruelty.
62 aí, né?
In ascending order, a row of buttons marked the amount of voltage one person would inflict upon another. Milgram's original motive for the experiment was to understand the unthinkable. How the German people could permit the extermination of the Jews.
Bem sobre isso, né?
I learn of incidents such as the massacre of millions of men, women, and children perpetrated by the Nazis in World War II. How is it possible, I ask myself, that ordinary people, who are courteous and decent in everyday life, can act callously, inhumanely, without any limitations of conscience? Now, there are some studies in my discipline, social psychology, that seem to provide a clue to this question.
Vamos lá.
The problem I wanted to study was a little different. It went a little bit further. It was the issue of authority. Under what conditions would a person obey authority who commanded actions that went against conscience? These are exactly the questions that I wanted to investigate at Yale University.
E é isso que a gente quer voltar a falar aí, né?
1962. An experiment is being conducted in the Elegant Interaction Laboratory at Yale University. The subjects are 40 males between the ages of 20 and 50 residing in the greater New Haven area.
Psychologists have developed several theories to explain how people learn. One theory is that people learn things correctly whenever they get punished for making a mistake.
40 years later, Milgram's infamous experiment, obedience, is still taught in classrooms around the world.
Sim, eu aprendi isso aí na faculdade.
All right, now the next thing we'll have to do is set the learner up so that he can get some sort of punishment.
What inspired Milgram, I would say there were a number of factors. One of them is he was very ambitious. He wanted to make a mark in social psychology. And he wanted, as he wrote to one friend, he wanted to come up with the boldest experiment that he could think of.
Outro professor.
This electrode is connected to the shock generator in the next room. And this electrode paste is to provide a good contact to avoid any blister or burn.
Pra dar choque no cara.
Before we go into the next room.
About 2 years ago, I was at the Veterans Hospital in West Haven. And while there, they detected a heart condition. There's nothing serious, but as long as I'm having these shocks, how strong are they? How dangerous are they?
Well, no, although they may be painful, they're not dangerous.
A história do cara.
No, that's all.
Tem uma condição.
Test and be seated in front of the shock generator, please, in the next room.
But the experiment was rigged.
The victim was an accomplice of the experiment. The victim, according to plan, provided many wrong answers. His verbal responses were standardized on tape, and each protest was coordinated to a particular voltage level on the shock generator.
Now, as teacher, you were seated in front of this impressive-looking instrument. Shock generator.
Isso tem várias fotos na internet, tá?
A line of switches that goes from 15 volts to 450 volts, and a set of verbal designations that goes from slight shock to moderate shock, strong shock, very strong shock, intense shock, extreme intensity shock, and finally XXX.
Representando.
Your job, the experimenter explains to you, is a word pair test. If he gets each answer correctly, fine, you move on to the next pair. But if he makes a mistake, you were instructed to give him an electric shock.
Então, essa era a coisa. Você vai lá, a pessoa que tá lá, que combinou, tem uma série de palavras que ele precisa dizer, que ele precisa ter decorado. E se ele acertar, ok. Se ele errar, você vai dar o choque. Você que não sabe que tudo é uma armação.
Starting with 15 volts.
Olha lá, o sinal.
Increase the shock one step on each error.
Incorrect. You'll now get a shock of 105.
Olha lá.
Hard hit. Just how far can you go in this thing?
Olha lá. Desconforto.
Milgram was very much aware that obedience is a necessary ingredient for society to function. But he focused on the darker side of obedience.
Incorrect. 150 volts.
Olha lá, e a resposta é gravada lá.
It's absolutely
Olha
essential
lá.
that you continue. You got no other choice, teacher. Oh, I have a lot of choices. My number one choice is that I wouldn't go on if I thought he was being harmed.
Now this man makes disobedience seem a very rational and simple deed. Now other subjects respond quite differently to the experimenter's authority.
Aquele cara. Olha os outros. Olha lá. Olha lá. Por favor, continue. Olha lá.
Many, if not most subjects, found it a highly stressful, conflicted experience. People are stammering, laughing hysterically and inappropriately.
Olha lá. 150 volts. E a gravação. Olha lá. E olha para a figura de autoridade. Se você é responsável lá.
It wasn't like they were going blithely, sadistically. People went stop and go, stop and go. They were in a state of conflict, which was created tremendous amount of stress. So that was the main critique.
This will be at 3:30.
Grito.
As his voice began to show increasing frustration, so did I. And I was really in a state of real conflict and agitation. One of Stanley Milgram's basic contributions was that you don't ask people what they would do given this hypothetical situation. You put them in the situation.
Colocar a pessoa. Olha lá, um desconforto.
180 volts.
E o estímulo, né? Por favor, continue. Não matarei esse homem.
One of the things that's a prerequisite for carrying out acts that are evil is to shed responsibility from your shoulders and hand it over to the person in charge.
Olha lá.
I'm responsible for anything that happens.
Olha lá, ó. Eu sou responsável. Faz lá que eu sou responsável.
He didn't hold any gun to anybody's head. Just the fact that he conveyed a sense of authority. Roughly 60-65% of the people went all the way to the top of the shock board.
Olha lá.
450 volts.
Olha lá.
That's it. Now continue using the last switch on the board, please. The 450 switch.
Olha lá.
Answer. Continue, please. I'm not getting no answer. Don't the man's health mean anything? Whether the learner likes it or not, we must. But he might be dead in there.
Ele pode estar morto lá.
I think very effectively that the Nazis weren't all a bunch of psychopaths at Belsen.
Olha aí que importante.
A death camp from the middle class in New Haven.
Well, who was actually pushing the switch? I was. But he kept insisting. I told
Olha
him
lá.
but he said he got to keep
Olha lá.
What kind of obedience would Milgram get today if he were
Obediência.
today?
Probably about the same.
Probably about the same. Why?
Alheia.
People are just inherently obedient.
It just really shows like how far human beings will go to appease what they perceive to be an authority figure.
Milgram has identified one of the constants, one of the universals of social behavior. The readiness to obey authority cuts across time. It's a constant. The other outstanding and distinctive thing about the obedience experiment is how much it has and keeps on permeating contemporary culture and thought. It's still with us in very, very important ways.
Enfim, olha só como é o estudo sobre obediência. Se você assumir a responsabilidade por isso, eu continuo fazendo, mas a responsabilidade não é minha. Sou eu que estou apertando o switch, sou eu que estou ali judiando dessa pessoa, possivelmente, né? Até matando, né? No estudo era tudo combinado, as frases eram combinadas, as reações eram combinadas, tudo gravado. E a pessoa que estava testando era o cara que estava ali puxando o switch, enquanto um professor atrás dizia, você precisa continuar. Mas não fazia nada de forma física a obrigar aquela pessoa a continuar. Mas as pessoas que estavam ali, grande parte das pessoas, seguiam uma figura de autoridade, seguiam a influência de alguém. Que, enfim, a gente pode nomear de várias formas. A gente pode encontrar várias pessoas que nos influenciam a fazer coisas. E se a gente recebe um estímulo certo, a gente segue essa orientação que essa pessoa... A gente tende a seguir uma orientação que essa pessoa dê. Então, por isso é tão complicado esse lugar onde eu não quero me responsabilizar, onde eu não quero fazer isso, mas eu acabo fazendo por uma conformidade social, por uma influência externa. Então é importante a gente estar sempre refletindo sobre os nossos atos e o que eles geram. Eles geram no outro uma série de coisas. Tá? Nesse exemplo de Milgram, que tem a ver com nazismo e que tem a ver com coisas que estão acontecendo atualmente, na nossa sociedade atualmente. Queria te convidar a essa reflexão comigo, para a gente continuar pensando mais sobre implicações disso na nossa sociedade hoje. Me manda um comentário aqui, dá um curtir e me ajuda a espalhar essa palavra, compartilhando aí para outras pessoas.